So we're going to go ahead and get started. I know that there's a lot of questions from the audience, so we're not going to. We'll do a few questions around our theme, which is trade, technology, and talent, and then I'm going to open it up to the audience so that you guys can ask the questions that you've been wanting to. So I'm going to start off with. Dr. Womack, in The Machine That Changed the World, you highlighted how lean principles can create efficiencies that ripple across the supply chain. With the rise of global trade, tensions, and disruptions, how do you see lean thinking reshaping supply chain practices to enhance competitiveness?
Okay, well, thanks. Thanks for inviting me. I need to deal with the Dr. Womack problem to begin with. I find this deeply amusing. In this country, we went down a long path of credentialing people. And in particular, in the academic world, let's get everybody a PhD. Well, maybe that's a good idea. Maybe it's not. But nothing I've ever done in my long life now had anything to do with what I did in academics. How could you go through all these years of education and never learn anything about problem solving? Never heard about confirmation bias, never heard about system one versus system two thinking. And so therefore you're not prepared to do anything but make mischief. So I decided that I was not going to be a professor because we got some professors here and they're nice people. But I couldn't do what I wanted to do as a professor. Instead, I would be on the research side of MIT. And indeed, I would do things that I never could have done as a professor. So we decided to do a survey of global manufacturing practice in automotive. And to do that, we would have to get the cooperation of every car company in the world, and by the way, some of their money. And so we did. And let me think, BMW is not here. Anybody from BMW here? They were the only free rider in the whole thing. They refused to pay up.
What if they were here? Would you
I'd
say?
say, I just lived in South Carolina. It's a free riders. It was a short visit. So let's, well, in the way academics do surveys is they send out a survey. And we thought this was deeply naive. Ask people about their productivity, their quality, their flexibility, so forth. Do you think they're going to answer reality? So instead we said, we will send you the survey, but then we will come and help you fill it out. You need absolute access. And again, amazingly, we got agreement. And the company that had to go first was Toyota. So Toyota, Shoichiro Toyota, the chair, said, you need to do this. Toyota's in, everybody else is in, because they want to learn about you. Smart politics. That was at a time in the early 80s when the Japanese menace. Do you remember Japan is number one? They're going to take over the world. So you got these sinister forces that are going to take all of your jobs away. And so therefore, let's demystify this. But you have to let us in and answer our question. Now, by the way, they thought that Gaijin, that's foreigners, but people who just aren't good people, Gaijin would never be able to copy. And I must say, for some decades, that was a good bet. That, there was a lot of programs, activity, but very little actual improvement due to this. So that's how I learned what I know. And what I have done all of my years is that someone says, come talk to us. And I say, well, great, I've got to find some Gemba first, because I don't ever talk to people when I have. Mm-hmm. So yesterday, my own devising, I was over at Roper GE Appliance, and they say Lafayette. That's not the way we said it down in Arkansas. I'm from Arkansas. Not the same conference, so I have to worry about it anyway. They never win. So I was over taking a look Gemba Day. And by the way, I didn't give anybody answers to any question. I just walked and talked, asked people, tell me about your work. Tell me what you're doing. What are your problems? How are you countermeasuring those problems? So mine has been an unusual and very lucky Gemba life, kind finally note that I've never done any real work. But in the Toyota world, the work is an action that actually creates value for a consumer. And then we know about muda, that's waste. But there's an intermediate category, which is incidental work, which is work that has to be done for the real work to be done. Okay, that's the team leader, that's the area manager, that's the plant manager, that's all the way up to the CEO. We hope they do some incidental work anyway. We know they don't do any real work. So therefore, at best, been incidental work. I have never been real work. So just want to clarify. Now, you asked about supply chains and so forth. As it happens,
I think she wants you to take your mic. It's not picking you up.
oh, it's
Yeah,
not picking me up. Well, what do you want me to do?
Yeah, is that working?
Is that picking me up?
Your box. Yeah, she said your receiver.
Yeah.
She's not picking up your receiver.
This is the problem. Need to do some Isaac. All right. Always have an electrical engineer with you.
Try it now.
How's that?
No? Can
I
we
broke it.
Can we
No?
get a handheld?
Wait a second. Okay. Much for technology.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, as it happened, coincident with our publishing the machine book, that's 1990, that was the beginning of the great wave of offshoring and outsourcing. Okay? And managers had a choice in this country. They could either fix what they had, or they could find some people on the other side of the world who they had never met, who they didn't know, and all they knew was they worked cheap. And which would you rather do in your company? Would you rather fix the mess you've got, or would you rather find somebody in China who will send you some cheap stuff? Okay? Answer 100%. Let's go to China. Amazing thing. And I had seen the same thing about Japan at the beginning of the 80s. And by the way, on my first trip to Japan, about 1980, the American explanation was that Japan is based on subsidized robots. That's why they're winning. The march of the Japanese robots, all with government subsidy. And of course, I got there and discovered that Toyota was the least automated company in the car industry in Japan. And they were the best. And they were by far the best because they were so brilliant at eliminating waste. Okay? So here we are in the late 80s, beginning of the 90s. Everybody's going to outsource. And a wonderful example from a fellow, Matt Lovejoy, who was on our board for a long time, a casting operation in Chicago. And he was about 50 miles away from Kohler, which was his biggest customer. And the CEO of Kohler announced that they would send offshore 20% of their buy within the next 18 months. And told Matt, we're going to get our die-cast parts in China. And he said, well, wait a minute, I'm an hour away, and I'm delivering 4 times a day. And I deliver exactly on the truck what you call for. You know, we change the order, and I bring what you need. And now I'm going to do it by sea container with a 30-day lead time. Why is this smart? And they said, well, it's smart, work cheap in China. Okay? And he couldn't talk him out of it. Now, by the way, he owns a die casting factory in Shanghai, and another in Sao Paulo, and another in Porto, in Brazil, in Portugal. And guess what? He uses the exact same dies with the exact same die casting machines in all 4 plants. So how is it possible, die casting, almost no labor content, how is it possible it could be cheaper from China? From Kohler's standpoint, there was no investigation. Everybody knows it's cheaper from China. Okay, so we put out Lean, which says, hey, fix what you got. And we were really swimming against the stream, that it was just so much easier to punt on first down than it was to actually try to run the ball down the field. Okay, so amazing we got done what we did get done. Now, yesterday I was at Roper. I'm not going to say any secrets about Roper because they've got a whirlpool on the wall back there, so I have to be careful. But GE was one of the most energetic outsourcers. GE Appliance in Louisville at the peak in the 70s had 23,000 employees, and they managed to get it all the way down to 1,300. Well done, guys. Don't know about those people who work there, but they probably found something else, right? Well, who knows? So the story that I was interested in is GE's long-term effort to reshore. And maybe you'll read about that someday because I want to write this up. But just two things to say about it. It has not been easy. It has taken an enormous amount of experimentation to figure out how to do it the right way. And they're not quite done yet, but it's direct correction, direct solution. And hey, I'm proud that we have been observers of this from the beginning back in 2012. Hello, how we doing? We have had a partnership with them, which has not involved our doing anything but observing and sharing some ideas. They've hired some people that we knew from Toyota who were very good people, but that was not us. So there's a story to tell there. I think it's a very positive story. I hope it will be yours. And I'm not a mindless nationalist. I just think if you look at the full cost of ownership, total cost of ownership, and you look at it carefully, and then you add one additional point to those, total cost of ownership calculation, which is how much cost and how much could I take out and how much quality could I put in if I were right here in the USA as lean as Toyota, okay? And you can figure that out. I'll help you if you want me to, help you do some math. But I'm hoping we're now on the rebound, that there is a serious intent to do better. A large part of what happened is purely an American management failure of senior managers who knew how to do financial calculations but didn't know how to create value, didn't know how to help their people create value, and punted on first down, okay? So therefore, I'm glad I'm not having to defend myself as a longtime CEO, and I've already said I'm not going to defend myself as an academic. By the way, 0% of the knowledge, the content in lean came from academics. I don't mean 0.10001%, I mean 0%. Now there's an indictment. Speaking of American managers, let's talk about American professors. Oh well, so that's enough of that.
So moving into technology, one of the things that in your books you write about creating value, and as Industry 4.0 is really upon us, and we're looking at where can we implement technology. How do you see lean methodologies and technology playing together?
Right, we are technology agnostic. What we want to do is get serious about figuring out what the problem is, okay? And by the way, most problems are not on the surface, they're down below. You might need more than 5 whys. I don't know how many whys you might need, but just keep asking. Let's figure out what the problem is, okay? And then what are the potential countermeasures? Okay, now the Toyota folks do not use the term problem solving. They say we countermeasure problems, because what we've learned about problems is anything we do in an organization to deal with the problem is certain to create additional problems, other parts, other things, because an organization is a balance. So therefore, don't be naive that you're going to solve a problem by buying some technology just to get started. But also, do you need this? What do you need? And Toyota tries to force its managers and its work teams to, anytime they're going to deal with a problem, tell me 4 ways to solve it. And they say, I've got it. We're going to buy some robots. I've got it. We're going to do AI. I've got it. I've got it. I've got it. So wait a minute. What else might you do? Okay. One of those is to take all the waste out of what you're doing. So there's a skepticism about just what they call jumping to solutions, and a belief you need to do more time, as they say on the left side of the A3, with regard to what the problem really is, and then be honest about what the consequences, the knock-on effects of technologies are. Okay, so look, I've been at it a long time. I first came in at the end of the 70s when we were all going to do MRP. And if you remember, MRP was going to totally automate logistics. okay? There were going to be these wonderful, completely accurate feedback loops, and there was going to be this central logic that was brilliant. And good grief, if you're a logistics guy, you better be looking for employment, because I'm not going to meet very many of you. Okay, well, how did that work out? Then we went on to ERP. Remember, ERP was going to make all the knowledge in an organization instantly available to everybody. Did that cause you to fall down laughing then? Probably not. Does that cause you to fall down laughing now? Yeah, maybe. Gosh, ERP doesn't need any people, right? Well, what are all those floors of people who are reconfiguring the ERP to try to keep up with reality? I wonder what they're doing. Okay, then robots. You know, the Japanese robots are going to take over the world. Now the Chinese robots are going to take over the world, if you've been reading recently. And then AI is certainly going to take over the world. So I think the Toyota lean advice is great. What is your problem? Do you really know? What is your problem? Okay, this is a potential countermeasure. Let's think through what that countermeasure could do, and then let's do an experiment. Okay, Toyota's thinking is entirely based on experimentation. Don't believe anything that you haven't run an experiment and validated what it is you're trying to do. When the AI guy comes in and says, I've got AI for your whole corporation and all your suppliers, you say, great, why don't we go to this one little plant off here in nowhere that, in fact, we don't even know what they do over there, and if they screw up, we don't care, and try this thing. Okay, and let's be serious scientists. Okay, what is the current state? What is the intervention? What's the hypothesis? What was the experimental result? What was the cost of the experimental result? And then if it works, let's do more. And if it doesn't work, well, you know, we do some Hansei, as they say, critical self-reflection on why it didn't work. And then we try something else. So I think this is going to be a great period of experimentation. Okay, and by the way, with autonomy, which is robots with wheels, with robots, and there are a couple back there behind, I was saying that I thought it'd be a great wrap up to this program if one of those robots comes out and just knocks me off the stage. I think that would be so fun, but I also think it's not going to happen. So anyway, that's the big picture.
Yeah, and I think that's really important. You know, we have a lot of manufacturers who come to us asking us for help with their Industry 4.0 initiatives, and looking at where do you start with technology. And any of our technology partners are very versed and can really work with them to really focus on what is the problem you're trying to solve, and making sure that you have all the waste out of that process before, because you don't want to automate waste because you're not getting the value that you need out of it.
Yep.
All right, well, let's move on to talent, because Dinara was talking quite a bit about, you know, technology and people. And so it's really important to be cultivating talent. And I know that lean methodologies really talks about how important it is to really utilize your resources. But there is concern, you know, as we have, you know, just the announcement, was it this week or last week, that Amazon is reducing 14,000 jobs with artificial intelligence. And then we see it, right? We go to the Panera Bread and there's not somebody who takes your order anymore. You put your own order in on an iPad. So how do we cultivate the talent that we do have? Because we still need to hold on to those people and make sure that they're involved, and without them being fearful that they're going to lose their jobs.
Questions there. First off, when you go to Panera and all you do is punch the screen now, what you really need to do is go to the central processing center somewhere and find out how many people are out there trying to get this darn thing to work. It's never nobody. Okay, it's often a lot of people. So don't be naive about claims that we have totally automated this, that, or the other. There's a back room somewhere where stuff is going on. Second, just to say about Amazon, that some years ago I got a call from Jeff Bezos, and I don't mean Jeff called me, but his people called me and said, how would Toyota run Amazon? And he wanted me to come to the Friday seance. I don't know whether they still have that under Andy Jassy, but Friday morning, Jeff always invited somebody in who had written a 10-page essay, and they would collect the cell phones at the door, and you'd be there for 3 hours, and you were to read the essay while Jeff read the essay, is Jeff furiously makes notes. And then you would talk about whether any of this was relevant to Amazon. Okay. So I did that, but I said, wait a minute, I don't do any talking without Gimba. So I need to spend a week in DC's just watching, including the overnight. And let's say those are the most inhuman places. Can you hear me? Anyway, if you've been in an Amazon DC and looked at what people do in an Amazon DC, you say, as a matter of just human decency, get these people out of here. You know, this is pigeons picking, but you know, you stand there as the picker, and Kiva, now Amazon Robotics, brings the shelving around, and the light goes on, and you take it out, and you put it in the box, or it comes around, and you put it in the box, okay? This is what human beings do. I mean, it's horrible. It is horrible. Look on people's faces. Look at, I mean, this is perfect, pure alienation, okay? So we should all rejoice that we're not going to have to be pigeons picking for pellets at Amazon. But on the other hand, it's a big social thing. There are 1.5 million employees at Amazon worldwide. By the way, 2.1 million at Walmart. So it's a big deal. But again, it's not so simple how you do that. Where are the people making these robots? Where are the people repairing these robots? Where are the people installing these robots? All that code. Okay, AI is going to write the code too. Really? Okay. So you know, let's be realistic about that. About your people. If you want to engage people, you have to be prepared to defend people. Toyota in 1950, they went bankrupt. Okay, they had misjudged the market. They were working on a forecast. They had very long lead times. The Americans, Dodge from the bank, First National Bank of Detroit, showed up in Japan to break the back of inflation, and he did it. He caused a depression. So Toyota's sales fell to zero, and there was no credit. And so they had been building a big wave increased production. Suddenly there's zero orders. So what are they going to do? They run out of cash. So you got to do something. They call in the bankers. And the bankers from Tokyo say, we want you to fire 1/3 of the workforce now, including Kiichiro Toyota, the idiot who got you into this situation. So Kiichiro has to walk the plank. And by the way, the Toyota family lost almost all of their equity at that point. They have less than 1% now. And the people who were left, the management said, okay, here's the deal. We will never run out of cash again. And the way we will get cash is not by borrowing, but by getting it out of continuing operations by removing waste. So if you want to work here, you have to be willing to do your job right every time. And you have to be willing to endlessly engage in improving your job. Otherwise, we can't defend you. But we're going to defend you if you do that, and we're going to do it by building a mountain of cash so that we're not going to have this again. So now go to the current disruption in the car industry and go back 5 years. And you discover that Toyota had more than 90 billion in cash, and no other car company in the world had 30. And they have been criticized and criticized over the years, particularly by finance professors, saying this is almost immoral. You've got all this cash you could be leveraging. How can you, as managers, have cash? And now, wait a minute. In the last 5 years, there have been no layoffs at Toyota, even though for a while production went down very dramatically. And they have the expectation of their people that if we keep improving our work, we can defend ourselves. Now, compare that with most American management. Does anybody work for a company where management has said, we will defend you? We will defend you. We'll defend everybody if you defend us, what they call reciprocal obligation. Okay, well, we haven't been able to figure out how to do that. So just to start with employees, if you want them to put their heart in their shoulder into things, well, they really do have to be playing on a team rather than a promise that nobody believes. And then you have to have enough respect that you really think that regular, normal people can actually be useful in improving the work. And by the way, most managers historically didn't really think that. They really didn't. You got these grunts that are down putting the nuts on the bolts. Gosh, bless them. But I mean, these folks can't figure anything out. They just need to be told what to do. That's where Taylor came in, right? And what standardized work means is they don't have to think. All they have to do is follow the instruction every time. And if you go down that path, well, then why would you expect to have any engagement, right? And if you really truly believe that people can't improve things, well, okay, you get a staff and you have the improvement staff. By the way, we've got OpEx departments all over the country. And what do the OpEx guys do? They come around to improve stuff that the line managers and the touch labor ought to be able to improve. But they can't because they're working in chaos. And the line managers are doing the whole day doing exceptions. And they're just trying to make the day, make the week, make the month, make the quarter. So line managers don't know how to improve either, but we've got staffs. And OpEx comes around and they collect all of your problems and then they Pareto them, looking for the low-hanging fruit, that wonderful low-hanging fruit, yum, yum. And by the time they get around to helping you, well, the problem's already gone because they shut down that product line anyway or whatever. Okay, so these United States, we are geniuses at setting up big staffs, okay, to go around and confirm the fact that frontline managers and touch labor can't improve anything, okay? And if you think that way, you will confirm that. Okay, if you turn people into passive reactors, they will react passively. And by the way, they'll quit for $2 an hour more at the guy down the road. Oh, $2 an hour, 50 cents more at the guy down the road. Okay?
Yeah.
So that's the problem with engagement. So how do you teach people to countermeasure problems? And the answer is you learn by doing. If you remember the old days, remember we had a war we won. Remember that one, World War II? TWI won the war for us, training within industry. Took hundreds, thousands, millions of people who had never been in a factory and turned them into pretty good factory workers by saying, first you do the job, and then you have to be able to explain the job, and then you have to train somebody else in the job. And we totally gave that up at the end of the war. Amazing. The Japanese, however, were paying attention. They just got clobbered, so they said, gee, wonder what they did. Oh, they did this. We should do that. Okay? So, therefore, you can only teach people how to make things better by saying, make things better. And then we've got, the notion was that management just tells you what to do and they keep score. But the actual job of management at every level is to enable good work by the next lower level. Enable good work. Tell me about your work. Tell me about the problems with your work. Tell me about how we could improve your work. Tell me how I can help. Okay? It's a totally different psychology. So try that. It's not easy. Okay? It's not. But that was the idea. That you start with the real value creating work is a very important activity. People want to do good work, but they can't because everything's a mess. So let's get things unmessed up and enable them to do good work. And then all the way down, CEO's job is to enable the function heads to do good work, and the function heads and so on and so on. So that's, if you want to get a different result, you have to think. You have to believe in a different way. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, at this point, I'd like to turn it over to the audience so that they can ask questions. I know that we have Skylar is over here on your right, and we've got Madison over here on the left. Can we do a sound check on the mics there?
Yep, we're good on
Okay.
orange. Okay, so we have some viewers online. So if you have a question, please speak into the mic. We're going to take some questions for Dr. Womack. Dr. Madison, if you want to take that side.
You want to just be called Jim, don't you?
Yeah, I used to be Jimmy. I'm Jimmy from Little Rock, but I learned up north that you couldn't talk that way. So I became Jim. And then I went to MIT and got to be Dr. Womack. And that was all, nonsense. Yeah.
I don't think it works.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, Jim.
Yeah.
First, my apologies for asking you to move away from the coffee station.
Oh, yeah. That was a.
Like, who is this guy?
Yeah. No, it's okay.
My apologies.
Yeah. But.
Number two, I have a 2005 Toyota Sienna.
Yeah.
235,000 miles.
Yeah.
And I won't get rid of it.
Good. That's good. Yeah. Yeah.
But I listen to everything you have to say, and I'm a consultant, so I get to work with companies on people, culture, strategy, right? It feels like everything you're saying is really psychological, spiritual problem, it's all of those things. And so I think in order for organizations, just like Mueller, the young lady that was that spoke about Mueller, we're going to have to do something different for the next generation of leaders. So it's going to have to be disrupted, I think, based on what you're saying. So I just want to, I guess I'm asking you to acknowledge, confirm, tell me I'm crazy, or whatever.
Yeah, we spent a good bit of time at Roper yesterday talking about Generation Z. Turns out they're not like you and me. It's different, okay? Well, first off, that could be a problem. Let's analyze the problem. Let's figure out what the root cause is. Look, it's not just genetic weirdness. These people aren't DNA-wise different, okay? Something's happened. There's something about the situation, so you got to grasp the situation. What is the situation? And often that means some self-reflection. You're part of the situation, okay? If you're getting no response from your people, well, maybe that's about you, all right? So you say it's psychological. Look, all life is psychology for all of us sentient beings. Spiritual. Everybody wants to think they worthwhile, right? Why do you want to do something? Do should be good for society. You, okay? So there's a lot of work to be done, and this is thought to be a uniquely screwed up time. All this geopolitical stuff going on, and all this political stuff going on, and all this cultural stuff going on, not just between generations, but across society, and all this technological stuff going on. So, oh my gosh, everything's going on. All the more reason to focus on what is the problem. Where's the signal? Okay, you're an electrical person, you're supposed to know that, okay?
I know that.
The noise does come out of this thing rather than signal sometimes. So it is very simple and very hard. Grasp the situation. Are you all familiar with A3? A3 analysis? And what you should know is that the very hardest part is the left corner. Grasp the situation. What is going on? And then the next hardest thing is the problem. What's the problem? No, wait a minute. What's the root cause? So we're in the situation you're describing where you're trying to help companies. The grasp the situation part and what's the problem part is actually the hard part. And then you've got all the rest of these things going on. And okay, now we're in a better position to kind of figure what's important, what isn't. That's good work. Let me say about consultants for a minute. That consultants can be very useful people as enablers, as a fresh set of eyes. What, by the way, speaking of spiritual stuff, the Zen Buddhist folks call beginner's eyes. By the way, never waste a pair of beginner's eyes. If you've been told what something looks like, what it is, you're already on your way to losing the game. You walk in and you don't know what you're supposed to see, and you just see what's there. You're immediately giving benefit to whoever has brought you in. Beginner's eyes, okay? So the consultant is valuable for beginner's eyes. The consultant is valuable for helping people frame the problem and giving them a method to deal with the problem. And as you do that, I hope you'll begin to gain a little respect. Okay, this country is short on respect, in case you didn't notice. You just can't find any respect for anybody else anywhere. This is bad. It's wrong. So, however, respect is the result of a process in which you say to someone, I'm going to help you do better. And then they do better and say, and I'm going to protect you. I'm going to be on your side, okay? I'm with you. So that's what a good consultant can do. For the senior management, really important. Help them see what the real problem is. By the way, they're usually part of the problem. Sometimes they're entirely the problem. Okay, so by the way, consultants get fired a lot. And that's, we all kind of laugh about that as if they must have done something wrong. Well, maybe that's because they do something right. Okay, so it's a great thought about what can a consultant do. What consultants can't do, but what companies routinely ask them to do is solve specific problems. You go into a company, and the reason you got a problem is that sales and marketing can't talk to production and purchasing. They can't have a conversation on a bet, and there is no respect. Okay? And they say to the consultant, well, okay, we got to figure out whether we need more or less variety in our product range. So you figure it out and give the answer. And you should walk out saying, I could do that, but you'll just be back in the soup as soon as I'm gone. Instead, why is it you can't talk about this? Why is it you can't come up with an agreement on the algorithm or whatever you're going to use to figure this out, rather than this endless civil war that you've got going on here? So consultants can do a lot of creative things of solving specific problems, not so much, teaching people how to see and to look at the picture, grasp the situation, get to the real cause. That can be useful. So so good luck. You might get fired a lot, though.
Yeah. We have time for one more question.
Yeah, we'll take one right here.
Hi, G. I'm really great listening to you. My name's Damon with SK Food Group. We're new here to the
Yeah.
area, so
Yeah.
we're about 5 months in operation. We've got about 130 folks on the production floor. All came from this area, from different industries, different backgrounds. So we're kind of at that phase now where the honeymoon's over of a new plant. And I love your comment about passive reactors, right? And so we're at that phase where we could merge into passive reactors or become countermeasure experts. And so where would you recommend that with a group of manual labor, line leads, machine operators, and we do have robotics. We have about 16 robotic cells. Where would you start with the lean part of that? What would be the first phase that you would recommend with a lot of new folks, some that have lean experience, some that have no experience?
Well, you start with what's your problem. Can you get agreement on what your biggest problem is? By the way, it's not the lack of lean. Okay, that's sort of neither here nor there. You've got some problems now. You've been at it for a little while, and you have the honeymoon. And isn't this fun? And look, these new shiny robots, and we got them out of the box, and we dusted them off, and they didn't work, they didn't work, they didn't work, and finally we sort of got them to work. And then we got the workforce, and they didn't know anything about manufacturing, and now they sort of know something. Gee, funny thing that we got a lot of problems. Well, great, what are they? And don't solve all the problems at once. Pick an important one and say, now, this is key. In our organization, what is our countermeasuring process? What is our process? Because we all ought to be on the same page. Not about the answer, but about the process for getting the answer. And you go into Toyota and everybody in the whole world, they've got a standard way of thinking about problems and how to countermeasure them. And from your first day on the job, they talk about this. And then they give you a little problem. You're touch labor, they give you a little problem to work on. Okay, and then it's a bigger problem, and then it's a bigger problem. And you get to be a manager, and it gets to be a bigger problem. So my first piece of advice is spend a little bit of time thinking about how your organization addresses problems. And do you have a common method? Do your people actually believe it? Does it respect people in the sense that it says, hey, you touch labor, just keep your head down and keep working, because that's really all you can do. Or let's get you involved in some activities that will teach you how to be an effective person at countermeasuring problems. So that's the advice. I don't know how you do that, but I mean, I'm not even a consultant. I write books, yeah.
Well, given that, I did want to know, it's been a little bit of time since you wrote your last book. Do you have any plans to do any more publications?
Well, you left out actually the last book. It's a great one,
Yeah.
Gimbal Walks, available on the web. And that's the story of about 100 walks that I took around the world, just trying to figure out what's going on here. So that's now 10, 12 years ago. I'm writing up this GE story. By the way, the deal there, this is more important for this country. That as a manufacturing country, we really screwed up, in my view. That management, I tell you, they all punted on first down. Okay? Well, you can't win the game just by punting. And we haven't won the game. And now we got a new chance that whatever you think, positive, negative, whatever about this tariff thing, it's going to force a lot of you to say, well, gee, now what am I going to do? That I tried to punt, and the referee comes out and throws the flag and says you're not allowed to punt on first down anymore, okay? You've got to actually try to move. Oh, my gosh. All right. So this is a great opportunity for this country. And whoa, wait a minute. Here's the way to really go down the chute. That if we bring a lot of manufacturing back and we do it as when we sent it out, what we get is mega inflation. Okay, that's all you get. You get inflation. Standard of living, not good. So for right now, right here, our front line on trying to figure out how we do it better the second time around. Okay, so please learn how to grasp the situation, how to identify the problem, how to identify the root cause, and come up with a countermeasuring process that everybody believes in. If you can do that, well, we're going to be great. If you don't do that, well, we're just going to be, well, don't even think about it. Yeah.
Jim, I want to thank you very much for making the trip here today and sitting and chatting with us, and appreciate it. It was a great job. So
Well, thank you.
thank you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Edward Taylor. Work for the Boyd Center of Business and Economic Research at the University of Tennessee. We're a nonpartisan research center there. Let me say, first of all, what an honor it is to be here today. First of all, I'm back in Cleveland, Tennessee, where I lived and worked for about 10 years. And second, I'm with you all. You may not realize, or you probably do realize, what an economic engine manufacturing is for the state of Tennessee. In 2024, you had total output of $72 billion. That was one out of every $8 in the state. 361,000 employees, so one out of every 9 employees in the state. So you all are a big deal. So thank you for having me here. Let's see if I'm smart enough to operate this. Oh, one more thing I was going to say. Trade, technology, and talent. Did anybody notice all those T's there? There's quite a lot of alliteration going on today. The title of my presentation is Navigating the Turbulent Tides of Trade. I wish I could take credit for that. I can't, but I went with that theme. And I was able to craft the subtitle, Steering the Ship. So not only did I stay with the alliteration, but I stayed with the nautical theme. Now I need to disclose, first of all, before we start, I was in the Army and not the Navy, all right? So you probably don't want me steering the manufacturing ship, but just for today, I'm going to try and do that for you. All right, we have an aggressive agenda today. I'm going to give you a brief introduction on tariffs. I'm going to talk about ways tariffs can both help and harm manufacturing. We'll look at an overview of the U.S. tariff environment today. As you know, it keeps changing. Look at some tariff impacts, both immediate and long-term. Discuss a few tariff mitigation strategies. And then I hope that we have time for some questions at the end. All right, Will Rogers said, "All I know is what I read in the papers, and that's an alibi for my ignorance." I really like that quote. I came up with a corollary. All I really know is just what I read on the internet. And that's my alibi. I say that because a lot of the sources for the information that I'm going to present to you come from different places. I've been careful to note those on the slides where they are relevant. These are carefully vetted sources, and I have extreme confidence in them. So just be aware of that. This is my opinion. The top business challenge for manufacturers has been uncertainty. Tariffs come in many forms. There's at least 8 that I know of. The exceptions are numerous, and they tend to change quickly. And if you're going to be successful in an environment that's changing this fast, you have to be agile and adaptive. All right. There are at least 8 different types of tariffs that I'm aware of. I want to touch on just 4 and really concentrate on the last one there. There are what I like to call the bad actor tariffs. And these are Section 301 and Section 201. And these are actually, helpful to manufacturing. They have been in the past historically. Section 301 protects domestic producers against unfair trade practices. Some countries in the past, particularly China, in order to gain access to the Chinese market, they require that American companies have a joint venture Chinese partner. And then once that relationship is established, the Chinese government will use coercion, espionage, and just outright theft to steal technology and intellectual property. So this is to protect American businesses. Protect domestic industries against dumping. Some of you may remember between 2012 and 2015, LG and Samsung washing machines were everywhere. Well, they were being made in their home country, and that country was subsidizing their production, and then they exported, I don't know, thousands over here to the United States, and they were selling them below cost. Domestic producers clearly could not compete with that. It was very harmful. So we have a tariff for that. We have a tariff to provide national security. There are some things that we just want the United States to be able to manufacture. Okay, steel and aluminum are great examples of that. I said before when I was in the Army, I can remember standing down in the motor pool and an M60 52-ton tank would roll by and shake the ground, and I would look at that thing and I would say, I'm glad he's on my side. And without American steel, without the capacity, the manufacturing capacity to be able to make products like that, we would be in bad shape. So we need to protect those critical industries. The last one, I have a big question mark there. International Emergency Economic Powers Act, and that's because it is a very controversial item right now, and we're going to talk much more about that later, so that's all I'll say for now. All right, the other side of the coin is, how can they harm manufacturing? And I'll admit a bias right away. Now, I am not a professional economist, but I do work with a lot of them, and I know how they think. And economists are generally not in favor of tariffs. They believe that they're inefficient, they limit consumer choice, and they stifle economic growth. And I know this for a fact. For the people in this room, tariffs have created tremendous uncertainty, and that's going to be our theme for the day, by the way, uncertainty. They've raised your input costs, and they've narrowed your margins. I see some people nodding around the room. Can I get an amen on that? All right. I love this map. I'm not sure you can see it in the back. We won't spend a lot of time on it. It's a stylized map from the New York Times. They're doing a great job of keeping up with the tariff picture. This was, as of October 31, this was the current map. A few things I'll point out to you. Over on the left-hand side, two of our biggest trading partners, Canada and Mexico, and they are a part of a trilateral trade agreement with the United States, appropriately called the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement. The other three in the top five are China, Germany, and Japan. Now, even though the tariff rates for Canada and Mexico are shown as 35% and 25%, 85% of the goods that are imported from those countries are passed through under the trade agreement, and they're not tariffed at all. So it's a little misleading. So for every tariff, there's an exception. Some of the countries in orange are the ones that we have a contentious relationship with. India, over here on the right-hand side, we're tariffing them at 50% because they buy Russian oil. Switzerland, in the middle of the EU countries there, 39%. I'm not quite sure why they made us mad. Brazil, down in the lower left, 50%, which is why your coffee is so expensive. But as you can tell, it's quite complicated, and I just wanted to get some picture of that. Okay, this is the effective tariff rate that the United States is paying on imported goods throughout 2025. If you take all those different rates on that previous slide, and as weighting, you use the amount that we import from those countries and compute the weighted average, that's the effective tariff rate. And you can see in January, we were cruising along at 2.5%. And then sometime in February, we imposed fentanyl tariffs on China, Canada, and Mexico, and got us up into about the 10% range. Then in April, after Liberation Day, we were somewhere up around 28%. And now there's been a few policy actions, and we're settling in between 15 and 18%. Currently, we're at 17.9 as of October 30. And this analysis came from the Yale Budget Lab, a nonpartisan group affiliated with Yale University. The interesting thing about this is these IEEPA tariffs that I referred to earlier are about almost half of this effective rate. If you remove the IEEPA tariffs, that 17.9 would become 9.1. So that's significant. But even at 9.1, it would be the highest effective tariff rate since the late 1940s. So this is an unusual time. All right, let's talk more about IEEPA. It was enacted in 1977 to give presidential authority to counteract unusual and extraordinary threats to the national security, foreign policy, or economy of the United States. The term tariff does not appear in the 8 pages of the text that define the act, and that's why it's so controversial. The act has been used 79 times in its 50-year existence. An example is President Jimmy Carter in 1979 during the Iran hostage crisis. Looking around the room, there may not be a lot of people that remember that, but 79 times. But it's never been used before now. It's never been used for tariffs. So a lot of small businesses are really getting hurt by the tariffs imposed under IEEPA. And 12 states sued in the International Court of Trade, saying that the president did not have the authority to tariff under this act. And they prevailed. And the lower courts agreed with that. So 2 days ago, it went to the Supreme Court for review. And I read a lot of the commentary, and nobody really knows which way they're going to go. I can tell you right now, the betting markets, you can actually bet on the outcome of this case. I find that a little strange. But the betting markets, there's only a 30% probability that the administration will prevail. Of course, like everything else, that can change very quickly. All right. Oops, went too far. So based on everything I've said so far, you can probably understand that there are a lot of challenges ahead. So let's talk a little bit about what they are. All right. There's a company called Fictiv, F-I-C-T-I-V. They're a global manufacturing and supply chain organization. They have an annual survey of manufacturing and supply chain executives at the director level and above. And in their latest survey, they surveyed 254 of these people, and 96% of the leaders were concerned about U.S. trade policies. Makes me wonder a little bit about the other 4%. I don't know. And in that group of 254, over half of them believe that tariffs will impact cost and profitability. They believe that locating back to the United States, reshoring, will be a priority. Almost half believe that tariffs will drive business uncertainty. A third believe that nearshoring is going to become more important than it's ever been. A third also believe that current policies will increase the need for a China plus one strategy. And alarmingly, over 90% believe that we haven't seen the worst, that trade wars will escalate in coming years. I think they expect retaliation or more retaliation. All right, so what have the positive impacts been immediately in the short term here? Well, there's no doubt that tariffs have encouraged domestic production, that some employers, the ones that are able to, if it's made in America, you've probably thought about sourcing your intermediate inputs in America. It's reduced foreign competition. Once you apply the tariff to the foreign producer's price, they are certainly less competitive, and a lot of consumers are switching to domestically made products. And it's sort of forced us to diversify both our supply chains and our export markets outside of China. So those things have been a positive. The other side of the coin is there's been negative impacts as well. As I said earlier, input costs have certainly increased, particularly on products like steel and aluminum. There are about 20 manufacturing subsectors, and I had another graphic that I was going to use today that shows this, but I wasn't able to work it in. 10 of those subsectors have input costs that at least 3% of the input costs are solely due to tariffs. And the range is about 1% for food manufacturing to 4.5% for petroleum and coal products. Retaliation. Export-dependent manufacturers have suffered from retaliation. John Deere exports U.S. agricultural machinery overseas. In a recent quarter, their net profit was down 29%, and they laid off 200 employees in the Midwest. So some of those effects, were felt almost immediately. And then after we're finished, I would like to listen to your supply chain stories and the disruption that's caused, because I'm sure that it's been extensive. All right. On this particular chart, they took three groups of manufacturing subsectors, and they looked at those that have minimal exposure to tariffs, medium exposure, and high exposure, and compared what's happening with the employment in those three groups. And they're using March as the baseline. Everybody is at 100% in March, right? And you can see the low exposure group, the blue line, they were growing before March, and they've pretty much maintained that rate of growth through June. That's as far as the data went, this particular slide. The medium exposure folks, the purple, they continued to grow for 1 month after March, and then since that time, there's been a slight decline in employment. So that in June, it was actually less than it was in March. But look at the high impact folks. Almost immediately, they began to shed employees. And now here we are in June, and they're about 0.3%. They have about 0.3% less employees than they did last June. Went backwards. All right, immediate strategies. What can you do to mitigate the effects of tariffs? The same survey I mentioned a minute ago, the fictive survey, they talked to someone, Mr. Dennis Arnaud. He's the co-founder of the Next Gen Industry Group. I looked them up. They are a digital ecosystem for manufacturing. I'm not exactly sure what that means. I think some of you probably do. These were 5 things he suggested that could be done if the manufacturing import that you're purchasing goes through more than one sale. You can reduce the tariff by using the first sale rule in a transaction chain. Strategic sourcing, I mean, that's a no-brainer. If you can buy something from a low tariff nation rather than a higher tariff nation, you would want to do that. Assembly in foreign trade zones may delay or reduce tariffs. I did not realize that we have 4 foreign trade zones here in the state: Memphis, Nashville, Chattanooga, and Tri-Cities. Duty drawback, if the product is exported, you can sometimes recover part of the tariff that you paid on the intermediate inputs. And then tariff classification review, I understand that we have a harmonized system of classification, and that sometimes just changing a minor feature on the product, or perhaps even just changing the package, can cause it to be classified differently. So those were Mr. Arnaud's suggestions for intermediate strategies. All right, a great American named Yogi Berra once said, "It's tough to make predictions, especially about the future." Okay, but that's about what we're going to do right now. We're going to make predictions about the future. We're going to look long term. Okay. If current conditions remain in place, I think that should be bolded and underlined with all kinds of stars around it. The long-term impacts are expected to be reshoring, moving production back to the United States, and technological investments to try and become more efficient using automation and technology. I have a great example of someone in Tennessee, a factory in Tennessee has done that. I don't have time to present that to you today. I say that it's long-term strategy. It's difficult and it's risky because it involves a lot of capital investment, but it has been done. Okay, manufacturing, according to the Yale Budget Lab, is going to be one of the winners in the long term. You see that blue line? I put that in there just to highlight what's above it. There's total manufacturing, durable goods manufacturing, advanced, and non-durable goods left to right. Yale Budget Lab has determined that in the long term, your gross domestic product will be permanently higher because of the effects of tariffs. And for total manufacturing, that's 3.2%. For durable goods, 5.4%. Advanced didn't do quite as well, and non-durable goods, 1%. There's only one other industrial sector that shows a net gain here, and that's utilities. Over here on the far right-hand side, this is every industrial sector consolidated. So the entire US economy, the GDP, is forecast to be 0.3 percentage points lower because of the effects of tariffs. So there are going to be winners and losers. Negative long-term impacts, loss of global competitiveness. If your input costs are higher than your foreign competitor and you're selling in a foreign market, I mean, that's not hard to see that. Even in manufacturing, some of the subsectors will suffer because the supply chains are more complicated or there's more retaliation from other countries. The USMCA review, that's in 2020, the USMCA came into being. It was a successor to NAFTA. It's a 16-month, 16-year agreement, but it gets reviewed every 6 years. So when they sit down at the table a year from now, there could be quite a contentious discussion, and Mexico and Canada are very important trading partners. So who knows what's going to happen there. All right, long-term strategies. What I can say is be agile and adaptive, all right? The people that are going to be successful are the ones that can keep up with what's going on and be able to quickly pivot to take advantage of everything that you can. Use your political advocacy. National Association of Manufacturers, Tennessee Manufacturers Association, they'll be your best friends. If you're like me, in the past few weeks, you've probably seen 10 soybean farmers on the evening news, asking for some sort of relief. And when President Trump went to China and talked to President Xi, when he came back, what did he do? He announced, oh, now China's going to buy soybeans. So it will work if enough people are making enough noise to get some attention. And they have some very common sense objectives. They want zero for zero tariffs. You don't tariff me, I won't tariff you. Don't tariff critical manufacturing inputs. Provide rebates if manufacturing entities are making capital investments in the U.S. All right, here's your obligatory University of Tennessee campus picture and Neyland Stadium. And if we have time, I will be happy to take any questions. How are we doing on time? Yeah. Okay. Anybody have a question?
So on one of your slides with the graph that talked about manufacturing actually growing and GDP going down, I saw construction was really low. Can you speak to that? Is that a -4?
Yes. I can't. I was concentrating on the manufacturing sector. I don't know why tariffs would be such a difficult thing for construction. Cement, I think, is oftentimes produced in foreign places. Steel, might be prohibitively expensive. Those are my two first thoughts. Let me say also, if you may not have a question today, but if you get home tomorrow or next week or something and you think, I should have asked that or I would like to know that, here's my email address. Feel free to shoot me an email And if I don't know the answer, I'll certainly look for it. All right.
So, my name is Glenn Arnold. I'm with the print shop in Knoxville. There have been these things called allocation and lot because there's only so much paper out there. The print shops who were buying from China and Brazil, wanting to buy domestic paper, price for that allocation has gone up. Have to buy the contracts we already have. In the thousands and thousands.
Okay.
Part of the forecasting.
Well, that, to me, that sounds like a supply and demand issue. You know, the supply has decreased, it sounds like, and the demand is still the same. So the price, and when that happens, the price is going to. Yes, that's what I'm saying. They can only make so much paper, and they're still making what they always have, but you've got other people wanting to buy, so that's increased the demand. And so that's just a natural mechanism of that supply-demand imbalance. But when people start to realize that, they are going to gear up to make more paper. So hopefully that will be a short-lived problem. So you're saying that they're harvesting every available tree for paper production currently? Well, that makes it a little bit tougher, but the people that grow trees, they'll start to plant more. I promise you, if there's money to be made there, they will plant more trees. Yes, sir.
Hey, Mohammed Kasai from Walker. I have a quick question for you. We talked about tariffs and, doing this on certain times. But I just have a question a little bit beyond that.
Okay.
Meaning that you mentioned there are winners and losers. Seems like some sectors are benefiting, some sectors not. Total, it seems like there was a small.
Yes.
Some data. You mentioned if you talk to economic professors, they all say no, tariff is bad. Generally, based on the data you looked at, do you long-term good for manufacturers? The data, I thought, I don't know what long-term, does that mean 5 years? Does that mean 10 years? And do you think it's a worldview and strategy? You mentioned being adaptable. Do you think that the world that we're living in, with the tariffs, not a strategy?
Well, I admitted my bias there, not being an economist, but I do believe in economic principles as I understand them. And I think that if we had longer, I could demonstrate to you why I think free trade is good. And so free trade is sort of the opposite of tariffs. It's not a strategy I would pursue, but here's where we are. Yes, ma'am.
So I think one of the concerns is that changing tariffs are on, tariffs are changing, and the uncertainty.
Uncertainty.
Even you had mentioned that. And what do you think that impact is going to be? And what strategies would you provide manufacturers for them to move forward?
Well, as you said, when it's uncertain, it's really hard to have a strategy because you're always reacting, right? So I think the strategy there is to have someone in your organization who is closely monitoring everything that is going on to the extent that they can, and try to be one step ahead of the competition in reacting. be agile and adaptive. That's all you can do, and work with National Association of Manufacturers and your association groups to lobby on your behalf and say, give us a policy that's going to be certain. If we just know what the rules are, we'll be able to adapt to that. But if you keep changing them, it's really tough on us.
Any additional questions for Professor Taylor? Please, I think you have your email address. Feel free to
Yes.
reach out to our team, and we'll be happy to connect. Thank you again.
All right. Thank you all.
Our first panelist that I'm going to introduce is Jeff Jolly. Jeff Jolly, his role here with the Smart Factory is he helps us with our 4.0 assessments that we do for manufacturers. And Jeff is an electrical engineer and is an accomplished engineering professional with extensive experience in manufacturing, automation, and production efficiency. With a strong foundation in electrical controls, he has developed and implemented automation solutions across multiple industries. His hands-on experience spans a wide range of technologies, including PLCs, robotics, motion control, and vision systems. He is also highly skilled in the Toyota production system, lean manufacturing, and Industry 4.0 methodologies. As president of Advanced Makers, Jeff leads in initiatives that bring innovation automation solutions to modern manufacturing, and he continues to advance the field through technical innovation, collaboration, and practical problem solving. So thanks for being here, Jeff. Next, I'd like to introduce Jonathan Gonzalez with Focused Apps. You'll see that Focused Apps has a kiosk here. They are one of our technology partners here inside the Smart Factory. And Jonathan is president and co-founder of Focused Apps and leads a company dedicated to being your trusted technology partner. For 11 years, Focused Apps has specialized in delivering applications for industrial clients, giving them the access to expertise that do not have on staff. For Jonathan, an Indiana University informatics graduate, this mission is about more than just technology. It's about providing the confidence for companies to drive efficiency and innovate, ensuring they are partnered with full technical team ready to support their growth. Thank you. Next, we have Mike Brooks. Mike Brooks is with Phoenix Contact. Phoenix Contact is also one of our technology partners. You'll see their kiosk and everything over here to my left. Mike Brooks has been involved in industrial automation for over 40 years, starting out as a plant electrician and evolving into a sales career focused on factory automation and controls. 7 years ago, Mike began his Industry 4.0 journey, leading the effort with Phoenix Contact and helping manufacturing customers with their digital transformation, developing scalable, cost-effective solutions by harnessing insightful data stranded on the factory floor. As an industry manager for the automotive and AGV markets, he leads strategic initiatives that help manufacturers harness the power of connected technologies to drive operational efficiency, data-driven decision-making, and scalable solutions. With a deep understanding of automation, architectures, smart manufacturing trends, and the evolving needs of manufacturers, Phoenix Contact bridges the gap between legacy systems and future-ready solutions. This collective work empowers organizations to unlock the full potential of IoT from predictive maintenance and real-time analytics, sorry guys, to edge computing and secure connectivity. Mike plays an active role in Industry 4.0 organizations such as the Smart Factory Institute, Automation Alley, Sesame, Mitch Auto, and others. Based in Ann Arbor, Michigan, he is passionate about helping manufacturers navigate the complexities of digital transformation and building resilient, intelligent operations. Thank you again for all y'all being here today. So first question I'm going to ask Jeff, with research showing that 70% of manufacturers are looking to integrate smart technologies but face budget constraints, with innovative technologies or solutions can deliver significant value without necessitating a complete overhaul of existing equipment or infrastructure.
Yeah, so there's there's a lot of different options out there, I guess, to get this modern technology, the data out of the machines without having to build an entirely new machine. There's retrofits. There's opportunities to use older communication protocols to collect that data, pull it, into a modern database system where it can go to a nice, beautiful HMI and give your management the views that they're looking for. So there are a lot of different options to implement, small sensors or things like that on a lower cost budget than rebuilding an entire machine with full robotics and all this vision and AI and stuff. There's a lot of options out there.
Thank you. Mike, Jonathan, do y'all have anything to add to that, or?
Yes, excuse me, I'll share with you a little bit about Phoenix Contact and why I'm here. Our company is 100 years old. We're about 4 billion euro. We have 20 different manufacturing sites, about 150 plants all across the world. So we began looking at Industry 4.0 as it became a topic 7, 8 years ago. I was part of the team that said, what does this mean? And here we are 7, 8 years later, still talking about what is Industry 4.0 and what does this do for us? It's what is the tangible benefit? So initially we said, well, what are the fundamental building blocks of Industry 4.0? And we came up with, you have to collect data, you have to transport the data, you want to secure the data, and ultimately you want to use the data. Well, that's a big end-to-end solution. And what we found is it's a little bit sometimes too much. If you think about, many people are like, send us all your data and we'll make all your dreams come true. That's a little bit too much for a lot of organizations. From a mechanical or electrical perspective, what we found is you can do very simple things on what we call the edge. You don't have to move all this data all across your organization to get to a little piece of information that you're trying to do to improve your processes. So we've scaled this back to what we call edge computing. You send a little bit of data to a device that sits on the edge. That device then analyzes the data, and then the results of that may go up to your ERP or your MES level to some other part. So you may or may not move the data. You may just simply enunciate to the operator, we have a problem here. But the technology is it should be very scalable, and you should start very simply, I would say. And there's things that cost under $1,000 to make this happen.
Thank you. Jonathan, I'm going to go next to you here. With many manufacturers operating on tight budgets, what initial steps can they take to begin their Industry 4.0 journey? What small practical actions can help them capture early wins and demonstrate the value of these technologies?
Yeah, for us, what we think is the primary first step is getting a vision of current state, right? Knowing where you're at right now. That can be done through an assessment and audit, but understanding the tools you have, the systems you have, the software you have, the data you have, what it's doing, and where that kind of fits in the Industry 4.0 like standard, if you will. And then from there, it's future state. What is your vision that you're trying to get to? Where do you want to land at the end? And then for us, it's about laying out that playbook or that roadmap and saying, don't look at this as I have to do all of this right now. No, we're going to identify different spots, right? And we're going to look and target very focused, small aspects, kind of like Mike was saying, right? There's very, incremental steps are going to be your key here. And then we would go through that with pilot programs and things like that. But you would want to identify your end goal, your end zone, if you will, but know that there are many first downs on the way there. And that would be.
Thank you. Jeff, Mike, you have anything to add to that as well?
No, not a lot. Just the assessment is a great tool, and Smart Factory actually offers a great Industry 4.0 assessment. So
thank you. So Mike, I'm going to go to you on this one. According to a recent survey, Companies that implemented affordable Industry 4.0 solutions reported an average efficiency increase of 20%. Can you share a compelling real-world example where such a solution led to measurable improvements in efficiency, quality, or cost savings? What factors contributed to the success of that implementation?
I would say if you look at the various use cases for Industry 4.0, I'll say Dr. Jimmy earlier mentioned number one, 2, and 3 is identify the problem first. And in doing so, if you look at we've done close to 100 different applications of Industry 4.0 or increased data enhancement. And through that, we found common threads for application uses. Of those, you've got quality is one improvement, quality/traceability, OEE, machine uptime, equipment utilization is the other area where additional data will help you. But far and large, the easiest one to do is energy management. And the way you can do that is very simple. If you look at how we do energy management today, we monitor energy on a gross scale, right? We look at our utility bill that comes into the plant, but it's not very granular. We don't break utilities or energy usage down to the machine level. In Europe, where energy costs, here in Tennessee, you have the wonderful blessing of the Tennessee Valley Authority and relatively cheap power. Whereas in Europe, energy is at least 5 times as much as it is here. So it's a much bigger factor there where there's actually regulations, but what they require in Europe is that each machine is monitored for energy. But in monitoring the machine's energy, we can also get a better ROI, because when we ask to add technology to any process, we have to go get a budget for that. And in order to get a budget, what do they ask for? What's the ROI for the spend? It's very easy to calculate. If I reduce my energy costs, I know my energy value, it's an easy ROI equation. Whereas quality and some of the other topics are a little bit more difficult to get that ROI out. So it's very scalable. It's very small to get started, couple $100, put an energy monitor on your machine. But what you can also get as a benefit in addition to the energy monitoring is what we call anomaly detection. If you watch your energy and you know that its baseline energy works at a certain amperage or a certain kilowatt value, and you see fluctuations and changes in that, you can then begin to get other secondary benefits out of just the energy usage of the machine.
Jonathan, Jeff?
To add to that, air consumption is one of the biggest costs on a machine. We have really nice sensors now that you can put right on your incoming line, measure that air consumption, help detect leaks or air blows that aren't being used efficiently and things like that. So yeah, there's some really good technology in that area.
Jonathan, transitioning to smart manufacturing can be challenging, particularly when balancing cost control, workforce training, and change management. What best practices have you observed that help organizations successfully manage the transition to smart manufacturing, especially when balancing cost control, workforce training, and change management?
I think kind of just adding on to what I said before, it's understanding the big picture, but knowing that you're going to take incremental steps. Another thing that we see that has been highly successful is you're doing this with your employees, not to your employees. Early adoption helps, and then being able to take those small steps controls cost. I don't have to do everything at one time, right? I want to do it incrementally. I want to work with, everyone involved to understand what actually helps them the most, what improves the process the most. And then I think having a vendor that understands beginning to end and understand going in and saying an assessment is very important. That is the first step that should be made. Can go through planning, execution, training, and all of that together.
Thank you. Mike and Jeff, do y'all have anything to add to that?
Celebrating wins is important, obviously, high visibility. That's, I think, one of the key factors in making it successful.
Okay.
I'd like to make one other point from an organizational perspective. Try to make a long story short. We're working with one of the largest tier one suppliers in the world. And this was during COVID, and they appointed a gentleman that we knew to be their IoT guru, and his job was to implement IoT across this organization, which was a massive task. But for us, it met one of the criteria is you have to have sponsorship from leadership, and the CEO of this organization appointed him to this role. So we said, check, all right, great, this is going to work. Because it was during COVID and Michigan had these really strong lockdown rules, these guys met in a pole barn for a year and they developed the architecture. They thought of this company has over 150 plants and produces metal parts. So they have stamping, welding operations, plastic, all very diverse range of things. And they thought of every scenario in which they could make a little black box that they could take into the plant and overlay to do data collection. So they did all of that. And guess what? It failed. Why did it fail? It failed because it was a top-down approach. This is kind of hindsight. It didn't fail completely. We did many implementations, but it would have worked much better had we taken and gone to the people on the factory floor and asked them, what is your problem that you're trying to solve? We had a solution in search of a problem rather than looking for a problem in search of a solution.
Thank you. Jeff, I'm going to go back to you here. Adopting Industry 4.0 technologies can lead to significant sustainability benefits, including waste reduction, improved energy efficiency. How can low cost or open source Industry 4.0 solutions help manufacturers meet their sustainability goals, and what specific outcomes have you observed?
Yeah, we discussed the air consumption a minute ago. That's a big one for energy loss, but also the MUDA, the waste, the improvements of inspection systems and the cost has come down significantly. So you can capture defects earlier in your process to where you're not making it a complete assembly that has to be scrapped or, decommissioned, reworked. So I think there's a lot of in-process inspections that can really help improve that sustainability and reduce waste in your manufacturing processes.
Mike, one last question for you. Then I have one last one for you, Jonathan, as well, before we open it up for questions. Mike, as manufacturers seek affordable technology partners and solution providers, what key criteria should they focus on to ensure that solutions are scalable, reliable, and offer a solid return on investment?
They talked about first identifying the problem, right? And then utilizing integrators or third parties to help define and maybe do the analysis of the problem and help you through that journey. On the technology side, it's really important that it's not a single vendor solution. It needs to be a hybrid solution. Because if you look on, we're not dealing with clean sheets of paper, right? We're dealing with brownfield sites that have legacy equipment. And I always look at the factory floor being like the United Nations. You got 100 machines out on your plant floor, and they all speak a different language. Some of them are 50 years old. They don't speak any language. So you have to have a device that can take all this disparate languages and information, aggregate it, and then bring it up. So it's important that it is what we call protocol agnostic. And it goes back to this edge device. It needs to be kind of small, easy to implement, and non-invasive to the control system, because what's the last thing we want to do? We can't disrupt production. So we have to be able to overlay this device or this thing to collect the data without changing anything else. Because, and again, in defense of the IT community, they have a job to do, and that's to protect the information that's out there and the equipment on the floor. So they're very reluctant to allow you access to the data, not because they're bad people. So putting a device out there that's non-intrusive and involving the IT community is very, very important early in the process.
Jeff, Jonathan, anything to add?
No, I think you covered it well. Yeah.
Good deal. Well, Jonathan, last question, and then we'll open it up for questions. As the adoption in connected technologies in manufacturing grows, so do the concerns about cybersecurity and data management. What are the key cybersecurity and data management challenges manufacturers need to anticipate, and how can they implement affordable strategies to mitigate those risks?
Yeah, so I think what we've seen is kind of the first thing. I think Mike was kind of touching on this, is having to open up, your floor or your OT for some of the solutions. So I think a big thing is knowing what is required for a solution to work. How much of the plant data needs to leave, if any, to perform or to be involved in that solution. I think you're going to see a lot of talk about network segmentation, basically saying OT and IT need to work together, figure out what can we open up, what can we not, what data has to leave for this solution to work, what doesn't. And I think a big thing in this space will be kind of the management of that. And then when you're working with vendors, is knowing that they're security first minded, right? Especially if you're doing custom software in any capacity. Are they following best practices? Are they developing with security principles kind of as a foundation of anything? And that would apply to both custom development. I would apply that to out of the box solutions as well. And then obviously on the data side, it's the same thing. Is this a situation where data can leave the plant to go to let's say a cloud environment, or is this a situation where we need to find alternative solutions where things are still kept locally, but we can still create solutions around that constraint?
Thank you. Jeff, Mike?
No, I think you've done a well job.
Awesome. Thank you, John. Question? I think there was one right here.
My name is Juan. Thank you very much for coming. Reading lately that according to McKinsey and Company, about 70% of all digital transformations worldwide are failing. And based on that statistic, if you peel it down even further, that means about 30% simple math success rate. Out of that 30%, we have around 15 to 18% of those 30% that they were able to sustain results. Tell me, the CI guy, and thank you, Mike, for talking about the CI folks. It is a tough sell to say, okay, let's go and do digital transformation. So are we facing a technology issue, a technology challenge, a lack of CapEx for technology acquisition, or are we facing something deeper that goes down to culture, leadership, strategies, or other things? What are your takes on that?
Wow.
I think it could be a little bit of both. I think technology projects in general in this space, I think it's a lot to take. This is a big change in a lot of places. I think that highlights the importance of understanding bigger picture. For us, the one thing that we see that kind of leads to that is, companies cherry picking, making decisions of, well, we're gonna do this thing over here first, but we didn't anticipate how that's going to affect everything else. I think that can lead to your kind of like unsustainable ROI. I do think it's an investment, right? Like this is a big change for a lot of people, in a lot of industries, to be fair. But I think that, and just it being such a, I don't want to say new, but kind of maybe new to industry process. And I think that highlights, I think what all three of us have said is the importance of, trusted, vendors, suppliers, people who are going to work with you, people who are going to be along for the complete ride. And I think it's, vendors who have connections to other vendors and say, hey, I don't know how to do that. I'm not going to mess that up for you. I'm going to go find the person who does know how to do that. And then transparency, I think, is going to be huge with a lot of this. Again, If you're just trying to cherry pick, problems to solve without looking at a big picture, you're probably increasing your chances of seeing a diminishing return.
Yeah, managing expectations in the end. I think that's why 70% fail
Right.
is the expectations are high as we have all this data, now solve our problems, and that's not really how that works. You got to have the right data in front of the right people, to help guide those decisions.
It's an interesting statistic. I can only say anecdotally based on the stuff that we've been involved in. It sounds about right. We've coined a term, not we, but the industry is coined a term for it called pilot paralysis, right? I'm going to try this over in the corner and it just sits there and doesn't go anywhere. And that can be for a lot of different reasons. I think most of them are organizational reasons. It doesn't have it hasn't produced a big enough result that can be driven through the organization. So there is that element of you still need top-down buy-in to make it work on a large scale. Within our own organization, we've got a gentleman, he's very proud of his Dr. Till title. He runs our manufacturing globally. And we began to do this in a pilot plant. And it started really simple. We put a little data collection device on a wave soldering machine. We make circuit boards and then plastic assemblies that end up in electronic modules. So part of the machine process is populating the circuit board and then run it through a wave solder. So we put this data collection device on there, not really knowing what we do with it. We just started pulling information off of it, but starting to observe some trends. One of the two takeaways that we got out of that was there was large dwell periods when shift changes were going on in which we were keeping the temperature of the solder at its normal operating temperature, wasting energy. So the benefit to us that was tangible and quantifiable was energy reduction by changing how the machine operated, throttling it down when operators weren't there, number one. Number two, we also noticed that there's all these cartridges that hold all the little semiconductors and chips that get fed onto the board and the robot loads them. And this one or two cartridges kept failing. Anomaly detection, we detected an anomaly, and we applied a control to that and produced a result. That's where we started with this one machine, with this one device, and this one thing, not knowing what we were going to get out of that. Fast forward today, this whole factory is truly what we call our lighthouse digital factory. And the Dr. Jim would appreciate this. What Dr. Till will tell you is that Industry 4.0 and digital is really the turbocharger for lean manufacturing. We have lean manufacturing at our core. That additional data we get from these little pieces of the machinery is kind of like putting a turbocharger on a car. It boosts it. We have some quantifiable evidence of that. So we've increased, when we started the process, we had an increase in the first year of 15% efficiencies across the organization. Today, now we're up to, and now that we're starting to apply artificial intelligence or machine learning to some of these situations, double the efficiencies, 30% increase. And we've got all of this captured. If you ever want, we've got a whole workbook on this and a study, so we can help you to at least visualize what it could look like. This is on maybe a larger scale organization, I don't know, but just to give you an idea of what can be done. But why these things end up in pilot paralysis, the only reason it works for us is we had a guy that had the authority and the position and the vision to drive it through the organization.
So there is, in fact, a leadership culture slash.
It's certainly a big factor,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
May I give some free advice? So, this is, 27 years. I started out with a tech startup company. And in my 27 years, I have never seen a company respect change management when it comes to technology and the impact it has on the organization. It causes it to be very fragile. And no one respects that, and it creates chaos. So to me, those numbers reflect the human factor in the process.
Thank you. So we're tight on time. So if you have any questions, I know you'll be able to find Jonathan right here at the kiosk or at the lunch. Same with Mike and Jeff. But we appreciate you guys coming up here and talking and